typically when we first get together with someone, and I'll be replying to this question in the context of a long-term relationship, in the context of having been with the same person for that 10, 20, 30 years. If there's ever a time in a relationship when we're going to talk about sex, share preferences, etc., typically it's at the start. But what we then do is find a pattern of activities in bed that work for us both, or that we believe work for us both, and then keep on doing those things. I'll work with couples who will admit that actually once sexual activity starts, it follows exactly the same script, and they might not be thinking it in the moment, but thinking about it, for example, in a coaching session, they'll say, yeah, we always do the same things. Whatever mood we were in, whether it's daytime, nighttime, whatever the kind of surrounding context, once we get going, we always do the same things in the same order, and typically it has the same result. So maybe for a couple it might be that they both orgasm, and it might have that result that they both orgasm, but the process for getting there has become so autopiloted, if that's a word, that they don't actually need to kind of be fully present in the moment. Their bodies can be going through the motions of pleasure, and even if that results in an orgasm, it's not necessarily what I feel I want to say is touching their souls. They could be thinking about what they need to buy in the supermarket, for example, whilst their body is taking that pleasure pathway. So they're not fully present in the moment. But couples very often, when they've found that pattern of behaviour that works for them, they'll use it. It's an easy default. And what that means, though, is they keep doing the same things again and again and again over 10, 20, 30 years. That's not satisfying in the long term. So what can we do about that? So Yellis's question, how do we keep sex exciting? So I would say the first thing is to be aware that those things that you said to each other at the start, the things that you found worked for your body and each other's bodies at the start, do not remain set in stone forever. So check in with each other and give each other license to entirely change. So it might be that, for example, at the start, one of you said to the other, I will never engage in any kind of anal play. That is not for me. Never ask me to do that. I will never do that. Over the, say, 15 years you've been together, that situation might have actually started to change for that first person. But the second person thinks, I can never ever make any suggestion about anything in that region, because they made very clear they're never up for that. But then the second person might be thinking, well, I said 15 years ago I was never up for that, but now I'm a bit curious, but my partner's never made any suggestions. They never go anywhere near that area. They're clearly not interested in that. And so you can have a situation where actually both partners are a bit curious, but because of that thing that was said 15 years ago, neither of them wants to bring that up. So something that I think it's healthy to do is, even with those areas of sex where we've said it's an absolute, a no, and one of the ways we can think about different activities is what's a definite yes, what's a it doesn't personally turn me on, but it doesn't upset me or repulse me in any way. And if you wanted to explore it, I'd be up for doing that for you. So a yes doesn't particularly excite me, but doesn't appall me. We can try it, and no. But even those things that are a no, you still do revisit the topic on a semi-regular basis. So this could be in a once a year sex review. One of my most popular workshops is one that I run in early January, which is a sexual planning workshop for the year, a review of the previous year and a look ahead at the year that's coming up. And do revisit all of those areas. Is there something which was a definite no that for whatever reason you're now a bit curious about? So that's a tip. And kind of open the playing field for your partner as well, to say, has anything changed? Is there something that you're curious about now that you weren't before? Another way to keep things kind of varied on a regular basis is to always check in, or almost always check in, at the start of partnered sexual activity. What do you need? So if we assume it's at night time, what do you need tonight? And even to check in with yourself, having said partnered, you can check in with yourself solo. If you're going to have a masturbation session, what do I actually need? And it's about, again, not falling into that autopilot that people tell me sometimes that they've been in for decades. We might want sex for very different reasons. It might be that we need to feel reassured and held close and that we're loved. It might be that we want to feel dominant and powerful and in control. It might be that we want a wild session, or another time it might be that we want a quickie. It might just be that we want some erotic connection without it being a marathon. And when we ask each other, when we check in, what do you need tonight? That results in sex that's more tailored to what we need in that moment. It results in deeper understanding of each other, and it results in more variety in sex. And that in itself helps keep things exciting over the longer term. So there are some tips. I will add to that if we are involved in the world of kink, there are endless possibilities. Now, kink isn't all about pain and whipping and spanking in the way that some people think it is. Kink can incorporate psychological kink, physical kink. So one of the ways of understanding the differences there is physical kink would be being handcuffed to a bed, unable to move. The psychological version of that would be for a partner to place your hands and feet at the corners of a bed and order you not to move. So in theory you could, but you are obeying their order. So very often, even when I just share that, people will say, I didn't realise that the psychological side of that would be included as kink. But then there's also things like erotic hypnotism, there's shibari rope bondage. There is so much within the world of kink that can be very sensual and beautiful and not about impact or pain at all. But that within it has lots of variety, that has endless skills to learn and practice, for example, that can keep things interesting. So if somebody decides to go on a journey into learning shibari, Japanese rope bondage, that can take them years and years. And so again, that's a way of keeping things interesting.